Hello everyone, welcome back, and today we're going to be covering the Iron Whale for the Skeletal Sentry route and the Inner% Guide tutorial for Specter Torment. This stage is a lot of fun, has some slightly difficult tricks in it, some slightly complicated tricks in it. Just make sure as you enter the stage that you do have Judgment Rush selected and equipped because you're going to be needing it quite a lot. Try and get as little wall climbing on that ledge there. With proper dash attacks you can make it. Here's the first trick. By jumping off of that wall and using Judgment Rush, you can actually trick Judgment Rush into targeting the further snail. And here's another trick coming up. This is called the Snail Parade Skip. It's very difficult to do. That was the unoptimal version. The unoptimal version is what usually happens if you don't die. But I will be showing off how to do the more complicated version of the trick that does save more time. You're going to have to wait a second to dash attack that tentacle. It will otherwise cause you to dash attack upwards. And another Judgment Rush trick there to get you to Judgment Rush the stingray that is across the room. Try and be quick on these dash attacks. Make sure that you're waiting until you dash at the right angle so that you can attack these tentacles as quickly as possible. And we barely have enough magic to keep Judgment Rushing at the most optimal moments throughout this stage. Make sure you pick up that money from the Purple Duck Knight. Now at this point I like to make sure I have 1600 gold or more. If not, then there is some 200 wall gems we can pick up, and I'll be explaining where they are so you can pick them up quickly instead of having to go out of your way for them. And we have our mini-boss here, the Teethalon, as we like to call it in the community, the 420 fish. Why? Well, that's because sometimes he's just too high to attack. Now very fortunately, we do not have to deal with 420 fish randomly slowing down for no apparent reason. This used to happen a lot to Shovel Knight and Plague Knight, presumably to allow you to keep up with him, but you could be all the way on the right side of the screen and he would still do it. I've already begun setting up for the quick kill on this guy. This has a very carefully thrown Skeletal that will detonate automatically after it fires its 2 sets of shots. Coupled with a Judgment Rush and a steady string of dash attacks, you can actually kill him before he disappears off the screen. In this screen there's a small time save here. If you wait just a moment, the second light attack that the slugs do, the anemones do, you can actually get an up dash attack off of it. And here's a small trick Tohloo found in low percent that allows you to skip having to go across the room entirely. Now with a well-timed jump, it's very tricky, but you can make it entirely over that gap without having to climb. And using Judgment Rush helps you wait for the water to lower just enough to make that grind. Dodging the dreaded Big Bertha is a necessity. She deals 2 full hearts of damage with any contact, so please do not let her hit you. A Judgment Rush at the beginning of this room actually lets you pick up the checkpoint without having to stop and jump down. And finally, thanks to Rail Mail, we don't even have to ride these missiles, although if you happen to land on them for a split second, at least the ones going forward, you do get quite a speed boost, so be careful about that. You can just as easily go without landing on them, and it may throw off your timing if you do. Now we really get to see the Skeletal Sentry putting in work. This is Treasure Knight, and there he goes. A lot of that first wave of shots actually follows Treasure Knight, and you do so much damage to him that he doesn't even begin to do any of the new tricks that he learned in this campaign. It looks just like the old fight. Nothing too crazy going on at the beginning of the stage. Just make sure that when you dash off of this crystal ball here, you're going a little bit more on the early side, so that when you dash the second time, you'll get a very minimalistic climb, if at all, when you're hopping over that ledge. Use Rail Mail to jump to where the red gem is, and as you approach the right wall, you want to cut it because you want to be as close to it as possible. You'll want to jump off this wall immediately and use Judgment Rush, and this will force Judgment Rush to target the second snail, cutting just those 3 blocks if you do it properly. If you cut all 4 blocks, then you might free the eel there. Just do 2 grounded slashes and you won't get hit by the eel as you fall down. Skate through this room, no problem, and then we're coming up on the Snail Parade Skip. Now as long as you're grinding into the room, you want to do a dash attack off the first snail on that center platform there, and if you turn left as you dash attack him, you'll actually be in his hitbox and you'll be damage boosted to the right, which will get you through the room the quickest. Now you'll notice that on the right I actually got the actual Snail Parade Skip. I did a slightly later dash attack to make it so that when I did turn left, I would be bouncing into the snail backwards and I could leave the room quicker. One of the other runners, Fortuity Steelheart, says he has a lot more success with this trick when he does not hold forward while grinding into the room. Whether or not you get Snail Parade Skip, don't worry too much about it. Just make sure that you're keeping an eye on your mana. It is a little tight on 3 darkness throughout the stage. You do have the opportunity to Judgment Rush that tentacle because falling down in the water just takes a very long time. You can enter this room mashing your slash attacks. Just do 2 of them and you'll cut through the ray. And then you're going to want to pause and wait for the tentacle to drop back down. Jump over it so that you make sure you get a downwards dash attack on it. Now this tentacle room uses a Judgment Rush trick. If you were to use Judgment Rush immediately, you would target the very first ray in the room, and that's not what you're looking for. It's not necessary to kill this ray directly in front of you. Keep an eye on the ray directly below Specter. When it reaches the tentacle in front of you, then you can press Judgment Rush, and you should target the ray that is all the way across the room. This trick was discovered by SpeedFrog a very long time ago. It fools Judgment Rush into thinking that that is the only possible enemy worth attacking, because again, Judgment Rush will not put Specter somewhere where he cannot be. Once you successfully attack the furthest deal, if you went a little too early, then you should be up against the higher wall. If you went later, you'll be against the lower ceiling. Just make your adjustments, turn around, and make sure that you are grinding when you kill that tentacle and start making your way across the room again. If you are not grinding, you will walk onto the spikes and die, and Rail Mail will actually save you from dying if you grind across spikes. But there have been plenty of times where I've just walked onto those spikes and not realized it. As for those bubbles, I accidentally held left a little bit too early there, which kind of sucks, especially because of how long it takes to fall down. So just make sure that you finish the screen transition before you start holding left, otherwise you're probably going to stick to those bubbles and end up doing a flip for no reason. This room is fairly simple. It's the long tentacle room. You're going to want to start grinding, do a small hop, and make sure that you get a down dash attack off the further tentacle, and this will mean that you're close enough to just immediately do an up dash attack off the second set of tentacles. Do a short grind, and then get used to how your grinding and jumping changes underwater, because it can be a little wonky, but try to get a down dash attack on the first tentacle, and then an up dash attack on the second tentacle. It doesn't matter what you get on the third tentacle, because if you have enough mana for it, you'll be spamming Judgment Rush, and you'll target the tentacle that appears in front of you immediately. If you don't have the mana for a Judgment Rush, you can just do a down dash attack off that third tentacle, and you'll be barely close enough to do an up dash attack off the fourth tentacle. When you enter the second checkpoint room, you can either mash Judgment Rush immediately, or you can wait until you touch the checkpoint. If you do so immediately though, when you turn around after attacking the anemone, you can actually land on the side of the anchor. Otherwise you would miss this, but for safety you can grab that checkpoint. Grabbing on the side of the anchor is important because you can let go of it by doing a slash attack, which will hit those stone bricks, and then you can do another attack immediately when you land. Otherwise you would have to skate up to the stone bricks and two standing ground slashes, which is a little bit slower. This room has a purple Duck Knight in it and some darkness, so if you don't happen to have the darkness to Judgment Rush immediately, just fall down and pick up the darkness, and then you're going to want to Judgment Rush anyway, even though you're really close to him, because this will get you underneath the anchor, and you'll kill the Duck Knight underneath the anchor, which means that you can walk over, pick up the money, and continue onwards. At this point, you're going to want to take a look at how much money you have. If you don't have at least 1600 gold, then when you enter this screen, there's actually 200 gems hidden in the wall. Directly in front of where Specter is, there's a small, it looks like a conch in the wall. You can actually attack that and reveal one of the 200 gems. Keep skating forward, and there is a set of dinner bones that you can use to recover if your health is low for some reason. And even further than that, there's another 200 pink wall gem. Gotta look cool, so the only thing I can tell you in this room is make sure you were doing an up trick in the previous room. But yeah, just fall straight down. Try and break the center of those two bricks so that you can get them both to reveal their money, and get the 10 and the 5 as you dash attack the ray. And then here you are at 420 fish. How you choose to get through this room is entirely up to you. There's no wrong way to do it unless if you die. But I can say that you can bounce infinitely off of the small treasure chest that is hanging off of his face. You can just keep dash attacking that if you think you're going to die, or you can use Judgment Rush. Judgment Rush will save you from falling. You'll notice that once I'm done with most of the room, I actually try to make sure I land on the leftmost set of bubbles, and then try not to touch those other bubbles. You'll need them to place your Skeletal without him falling down. You want to be quick here and make sure you actually throw your Skeletal before the Teethalon stops moving, otherwise he's not going to detonate in time, and then you need to start attacking him as soon as his chest becomes vulnerable. You should be taking every chance you have to dash at him. You need to be doing at least 9 attacks on him throughout the course of the fight. There is some small leeway that you can wait a second so that you can kill one of his projectiles before you do your dash attack, so that you don't actually bump into it. But after your 9th attack, do a Judgment Rush. It'll do 2 damage, and your Skeletal will do 1, which will do the 12 hits necessary to kill the 420 fish. This is a fairly precise trick, so make sure you practice this kill. As we enter the room after 420 fish, all you need to do is skate into it, do a down dash attack on the ray, and then that should give enough time for the anemone to launch one of its light balls. You can do an up dash attack off of that. You can't mash Judgment Rush when you enter this room, or you'll attack the slime. Try and do a late dash attack off the first light ball that falls down, and then if you do a wall hop and give it just another second, the second light ball will come out and you can actually get a dash attack up and over that anemone with it. Just be careful as you try and climb up this ladder. Make sure you don't accidentally fall down into the spikes. And in this room is nothing special, just dislodge the dirt clod and do a dash attack up. Neat little low percent trick coming up. You want to go over and hit the switch as you normally would, but when you come back around, instead of destroying both blocks, Tohloo found that if you do an earlier cut, you'll only destroy the first brick, and then you'll be able to jump up a little bit sooner. Keep in mind, you may still have to wait if a missile is in your way. If you try and jump directly below a missile, it'll explode and it could knock you down. But if you have rail mail, you can just jump from the first missile all the way across the gap. You don't need to jump to another missile like I did. Coming up on Bertha now, we just have one more room. This checkpoint, you can grab it if you want, but it is much slower. Just jump straight over that gap. You can make it with a very well-timed late jump. Now when dealing with Bertha, if you do a very late jump off of that ledge, you can actually use Judgment Rush just before you would land. Make sure you do it nice and late as well, and the water will lower enough for the buoy so that you can land on it. 2 wall hops, try to move quickly through the room. Turn left as you jump to break those bricks so that you don't accidentally fly into the wall. Just a light tap of the opposite direction while grinding will always help you immediately choose the other direction to jump in. Once again, we're going to use Judgment Rush to help us make it to this wall over here. It'll let you climb up on that ledge for just a little bit longer, give Bertha some time to swing around. If you fall down or if you catch again, it doesn't matter. You just want to wait until the anchor comes back up. You can always use Judgment Rush to buffer how long it takes for you to fall back down. And if Bertha's coming by, you can either bounce off of her or you can just jump over the gap if you're high enough. Take some time to practice that room because it won't be scary after you've done it enough times. As you enter the room, make sure you're mashing Judgment Rush, and you'll actually collect that checkpoint as you pass by it. It's something that doesn't usually happen. You won't usually pick up things that you pass through, but darkness and checkpoints are things that you can collect while using Judgment Rush. Quickly turn right, just skate along the bubbles, cut as you approach the door, and you should be able to break through without having to stop or bonk. And in this last long missile room, you don't ever need to land on any of these missiles. You can always just cut as you approach. You'll be slowed down enough that you won't bonk into them. And if you ever happen to land on a missile, you can see that I'm actually getting a lot of speed the moment I actually land on it. It's quite fast, so just don't let it throw off your timing. Take some time practicing that. Same as these missiles will slow you down, and if you happen to be overshooting one or undershooting one for any reason, you can always use Judgment Rush to pause yourself in the air. Give yourself a little more time before you would land, and then you can make sure that you actually land on a missile. Now you don't need any health pickups for Treasure Knight. He's very easy, especially with Skeletal Sentry, so you shouldn't have to worry about picking up the health that was in the room before the checkpoint room. There is a hidden set of bones up there though if you would like. Treasure Knight, very simple fight. As soon as the fight starts, make sure you're jumping and hold that jump just a little bit so that you don't get hit by his anchor. Throw a Skeletal as you jump and get to the middle of the room. Start mashing some attacks out. You can get at least 2 hits on him as he passes you by the first time. And when he's coming back around, just try and get about 5 more hits on him if you can. The extra bullets should have caught up to him by now and forced him down to just a couple of health left. Follow him to the corner, slash him out a couple times, just stick with him. And even if you don't get those last couple hits in, your Skeletal will quickly finish the job, even if you get sucked into the treasure chest. Don't get mugged. Once more at full speed. Jump, throw Skeletal, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Try and get a 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, dead. Super easy. Just a little more menuing to go over before we enter the Lost City. And it's not necessary that you have this darkness, but there it is for you. It's always the 4th option. Super quick menuing. If you don't have enough money for that darkness, it's no big deal. I will be explaining how to account for that as we go over the Lost City in our next tutorial. Thanks for watching. Stay spooky.